Welcome back to the Zyori podcast, and thank you for joining us here on podcast number 90. It's a beautiful Monday morning, about 11:30 a.m. here on the Eastern Coast, February 29th, 2016. That's right, it's a leap year, and it's a leap year day. Everybody's not excited about. Who really gives a shit about the leap year, honestly? Facebook really seems to care. I've gotten notifications for every single fan page and account that I have on Facebook. They're obsessed with. Tell everybody how excited you are about the leap year. Oh my God, once every 4 years. It's like it never happens. Well, except sort of frequently, almost like, it happens all the fucking time. What's the big deal? I just don't get it. I just can't pretend to care that we have an extra day in February this year. I guess technically you have more time to do the things that you love, spend time with the people you hold dear, and Facebook wants you to share that with the world so they get more data and metadata that they can share with their advertisers. That's really good stuff. That really spruced up my morning today when I woke up. But no, I'm feeling good. I have some exciting news. I'm finally settling down in New Jersey. It is official. I just signed a lease yesterday to get it all squared up. I got my my T's crossed and my I's dotted. So Central Jersey, man, that's where it's going to be. I've got a whole new studio area that I'm setting up in the back. This is the living room, totally temporary. I got a new desk coming on Wednesday that I'm super excited about. It's this cool modular piece that comes apart, and it's pretty sick. I'm going to do some before and after pictures because I think it's going to be a nice little studio setup. Got the whiteboard ready to hang up. It's going to be good. So today, this is still kind of work in progress. You can see there's shit on the couch because that's where somebody slept last night. Our new roommate drove up from North Carolina, Dan. Pretty exciting. Last week we did the podcast with Carlo. That was kind of his first time breaking the ice on the mic and doing that kind of a thing. So it was fun. A little bit low energy. I think in the future we're going to have some cool ideas and make some fun content. And I'm excited to do a podcast with Dan. I have some fun non-Dota related podcasts lined up. I've got a philosophy major, that guy Dylan we were talking about last week, who I'm going to have on in 2 or 3 weeks. And Dan comes from an organic farm. We talked about it yesterday. Just North Carolina, him and like 4 other people just run this farm, killing chickens, growing plants, birthing cows, milking cows, selling produce. It's quite the tale. And last night he was just giving us the basic rundown of his day-to-day before he came up here, and it was keeping me pretty intrigued. So I think we're going to have some fun stuff, and he's pretty fucking knowledgeable, man. He's one of those people that knows a fuckload about food and produce and how to find good stuff for good prices and kind of like that value meal. You can't afford to eat organic everything. I feel you, but some things are worth paying the extra money for. Milk, we're going to revisit that. Not today, but it's coming. So it's good. It's kind of a big sigh of relief for me. My life has actually just been this nomadic kind of chaotic move about since I left California. I left the BTS house pretty quick, traveled around a lot, and I've been living here for a couple months now, but it's nice to finally have this locked in. We're good. Up until now, we've been sort of going month to month and teasing the idea of moving somewhere else, relocating to another part of the state, another state all entirely. So it's pretty damn cool, man. It's good stuff. Now I can hunker down and get back to making some content. Woo! And it's, we talked last week about kind of getting over burnout and reigniting that Dota fire, and god damn it, man, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling that fire right up under my ass. I've been losing pubs like it's my job. I streamed a little bit last week, I think 2 or 3 times. I think every time with a losing record, and I played a lot of pubs in between, a few sleepless nights just grinding solo queue after solo queue, and god damn it, I don't know when I lost it, but at some point I definitely got really rusty at Dota, and god damn, it's been quite the hurdle. I think I'm at all-time lows MMR-wise, down in like the 3200s. My god, it's crazy down there. They're savages. They're animals. Yeah, everything you do, they just can't stand it. An LC just rush an LC rush an assault cuirass, LC with an AC. I'm like, why didn't you get a blink dagger? It's like, idiot, noob, faggot, blink dagger doesn't matter this game. They've got so many ways to break it. I'm like, it's still pretty good on LC, and I think pretty much every game I can't, and there's no dialogue. Nobody's open for discussion. Nobody wants tips. Everybody is just mad. Everyone's just furious that their MMR is so low, but they understand the game so well, and they're just all fucking yelling at each other. I had a game the other day that we were winning handily. I was Ags, the Necro, I was going crazy. We were decapitating people left and right. The OD on my team gets wildly upset that the puck gets a dagon. KS is a bunch of kills. The more mad that he gets, the puck gets even more excited to KS his kills, and then all of a sudden, he's raging out. He's like, I'm going AFK. Like, dude, we are winning right now. Look at what they're saying in all chat. The other team is more demoralized than we are. He's like, I don't care. I don't care, Zyori. He knew who I was. He was all excited to talk to me and then said, I'm sorry to let you down, man, but I just can't play with this puck. He doesn't deserve the win. He doesn't deserve it. I'm like, I don't care about this puck. All I care about is that we're winning. It's a team. It's like, look at his KDA. He doesn't even deserve it. I'm the only other one that's positive. I'm like, again, dude, this isn't fucking Heroes of New Earth. Nobody's keeping track of your KDA. No one gives a fuck except for you. So how about you not ruin this for 4 other people and we just continue what we're doing and win the fucking game? Of course, we ended up winning. He went AFK for 5 minutes, came back after he raged out and was like, holy shit, this Necro's really farmed. I think we might be able to win this game. And then we pushed high ground and won. And then I commended him. Why not? You know, it seemed like he was having a bad day, and I commended him for being friendly. And I thought that that might turn his frown upside down. And I'm not sure if it worked, but my God, I've never been in a game when someone is so furious about the fact that we're winning. Just come on, man. Just shut the fuck up and play. It's not that big of a deal. It's kind of fun, though. I'm not going to lie. It's a fun experience playing at this level of MMR, just getting in the zone. I've been playing a lot of Necrophos. That's my hero. I'm telling you, he's a great pub stomper. He's a great way to get yourself out of the trench. You know, it's kind of like Spectre, except you can be more annoying in the early game. Go for that aura, stand in the offlane, just they don't know what to do about it. They can't regen through it. They can't find you. It's fabulous. It's such a satisfying strategy. You just know that they're just getting chunked down by your aura, slow and steady. Once they get below half health, just have Axe run in there, taunt them. Couple of spins, you got to kill up on the board. That's what I'm talking about. So it's good, though. It's good to feel the Dota fire again. And I was so excited for this major. I really was. I feel like this is just a cool point in Dota where, like, after Captain's Draft, it's really clear that there are so many diverse heroes that work in the current meta, so many different strategies you can run. It's not that often now that we get these big tournaments where you get to see the regions really clash. Like, of course, we have the majors. We get to see it consistently, but it only happens once every month, every other month at most. And if not, you're just looking at majors. So it's really cool to see the play styles of a North American team match up against an SEA team, you know, China versus Europe, all this kind of stuff, and not have to worry about ping. You know, occasionally you get to see those matchups, but when they're on LAN, there's just, there's no excuse. You know, there's no like, oh man, I've got this shitty computer, all the LAN cafe internet. It's like, no, man, you've got a top-notch rig. You got the good net. Everything's solid. That's not a disadvantage anymore. It comes down to raw skill. So how could you not be excited coming into the major? James Too Good Harding hosting it. Everyone looking forward to it. My God. Now that we've gotten the administrative stuff out of the way, I guess we'll get right into it. And I want to give a little disclaimer before we really break into this. I know nothing. I'm not that involved with this major. I wasn't even invited to work the fucking event. This is all speculation from my third-party view, way off in the distance, with a little pair of binoculars that my parents gave me when I was 5 that I never threw away. You know, I'm way back there trying to zoom in a little bit, but everything's pretty fuzzy, and there are really no cold, hard facts to go off of. And I think that's a good starting point for this conversation, because still fresh in my mind is the whole Team Secret, cyborgmatt drama, whatever you want to call that, the thing that Evany and No Tail and whoever else worked up, the whole timeline of when they should have been paid and how they haven't been paid, and the dialogue back and forth. That whole thing was a perfect example of our community acting before thinking, lynching before there is full disclosure. And guess what? You're never going to get full disclosure, because we're talking about private agreements that need to be handled in private, outside of the public eye. So even if that situation gets resolved, even if those people get paid, you're never going to have full closure on that story. We may get oh, great, we're all square, everyone's been paid, woohoo! And that's it. But you're never going to know who was really at fault, why they were at fault. Was it laziness? Was it incompetence? Was it miscommunication? Was it some combination of the three? You simply have no fucking idea. And to just say, well, based on this one side of the story, it seems very clear that cyborgmatt is clearly the only one that could be responsible for such financial obligations. No, okay, from this little bit that we've seen, it kind of looks like that, but there's always two sides to these sort of stories, especially when there's money and agreements. We weren't fucking there. You have no idea what the natures of these agreements were like. You have no idea if even the same people that were involved when those agreements were made are still working for the company now. Things change, stuff gets forgotten, bullshit happens. Some people are thieves, some people are just busy and disorganized. And we don't know which people they are. I'm not saying Matt isn't at fault. I'm just saying we don't fucking know, and it's not fair for the community to be so one-sided and have such a non-constructive dialogue about something while simultaneously, actively try to say, no, like exile someone from the community. He's no longer one of our guys. And pretty much everyone that I know that's worked in the scene for an extended period of time has worked with cyborgmatt in some degree and had a positive experience. Very few people have been like, oh man, that Matt guy, he's such an asshole. He ripped me off. Why would he all of a sudden just go thief and try to steal some money from a boot camp and some other support staff that helped build up the company that he works? It just doesn't fucking make any sense. Matt is a talented guy. He worked in IT security, way more lucrative industry than esports. He gave that shit up because he loves esports and he wanted to help the scene. That's why he did data mining and all this other shit back in the day. It just doesn't add up. So it's not fair to make these super rash, bold judgments. Now, that's a good prelude, a good context of just perspective and how to approach these kind of situations. The whole thing with James is a little bit different because it's inherently in the public eye, right? He is the host of a major. The job of the host is to be the face of the event. That's why Red Eye is so perfect for TIs, because he's got a great looking face, handsome, very professional, sturdy looking man, very smooth sounding voice, he's obviously seasoned, talented, and professional. Knows what the fuck he's doing, That's the face of your event. It's in the public eye. The fact that a host was fired at day 2 of a tournament so high profile is mind-blowing to me. As one who works as a host in the industry, has done not events quite on that scale, but ESL New York, pretty fucking big, Madison Square Garden, that is scary. Not that I have never thought that could happen, but the chances of that happening are pretty fucking low. Like, that is such a PR blow to the event. It makes the residual effect that it leaves for the panel, like the tone that's after that, where people are just thinking to themselves, at least subconsciously, if not actively thinking about it when they're sitting there, like, I better not fuck up because I could be fired just like James. They are not fucking around, and once you get that in your head, you're not thinking about, oh, let's make some jokes. Oh, let's talk about this funny anecdote I had with this player. You're thinking, is this story inappropriate? Is someone going to get mad if I tell this story? What are people going to think of this? Am I sitting okay? You start to get self-conscious, and that is not good. That is not where you want a panel to be. That's why if you're working a panel, you'll often find that the support staff and production are super, super positive. They're usually ridiculously positive, and if you fuck up, they don't tell you till afterwards, unless it's a big fuck up. Like, obviously, they coach you, and you have to do the show the way that they want. But, if you slip up, like ESL New York, the first sponsor read, I messed it up. I misread the sentence, and I stumbled over it. It wasn't smooth at all, and I had to repeat it. And afterwards, I came back and just said, oh, shit. Like, I know, like, the sponsor plugs are one of the most important things that you can't fuck up. So, like, I fucked it up, man. Sorry. I misread the word. I got to reread it again. Next time I'm going to be all good. And the guy just like, no, man, don't worry about it. That was great. Really good energy. Like, instead of telling me what I did wrong, he just focused on all the positives because he could tell that I was starting to spiral down that self-conscious stairwell. He did everything he could to be like, no, man, that was great. You had the energy. You just got to read over it a few times. You're going to fucking nail it. Let's go. High five. Get out there. Let's fucking kill it, And those are the kind of people you need to get you in that, be confident, be yourself, take some risks. And it seems like that's where this whole thing with James began to devolve, with the, do I be myself or do I do this professional sports thing that Valve seems to really want, the ESPN style, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And it seems pretty obvious from the post that he made that the frog told him to be himself, put his thing down, do it James style. So it's tricky, but it's scary. I was surprised and rattled, and the way they went about doing it was fucking insane. The CEO of the company just going on Reddit and being like, yep, James is an ass. We've had issues with him in the past. We're not making that mistake again. Number 2, while we're firing people, Yeah, we fired the entire production team. They're gone. We're going to try to get this resolved. Here's my public email. Good luck. That's ridiculous. That's a once in a lifetime type scenario where there's obviously some degree of personality, little tiff there. Like, that's a CEO of $1 billion company. It's insane that he took the time out to do that. And even just the fact that he called him, quote, an ass. I mean, we all know this. We all read it and feel similarly, but it's just it's not even that big of an insult. It's like a donkey. That's basically what he called him. You're an ass. You're kind of dumb. You know, donkeys are notorious for being that animal that doesn't have, like, horses are, you know, kind of smart. They kind of interact and fight back, and you can train them and jump over. You're not training a donkey to jump over fences. You know what donkeys are really good at? Walking around mountains and not falling off cliffs. That's like a donkey's number one skill set that they provide to the world. And I guess there's probably some meat or something. I'm sure people eat donkey somewhere. They make that obnoxious noise, right? Hey, he's just an ass. We're done with that. It's really odd. And a lot of the jokes that James made, you know, like PPD said in his vlog, there's no way that he wasn't warned to tone it down, which is totally true. It sounded like there were some differences in opinion of how to do the panel. Production wants to take a break. He wants to stay on. You know, those are some problems, obviously. But to me, it doesn't seem like those problems are more of a PR blow than firing the host 2 days into the tournament. It's just sort of like apples and oranges. If you look at those scales, they're not even close to even. I watched the opening ceremony, and I was definitely a bit surprised at how bold of an entrance he made. He said cunt and made a joke about masturbating literally in the first 2 minutes of the opening segment. You know, the opening bit went something along the lines of, hey, y'all. He didn't say y'all. Why did I add a y'all in there? He's British. James, I don't think, has ever said y'all. That was inappropriate, and I'm sorry. That was a bad impression. But he opened up and said, you know, I was trying to get my pre-game ritual going. I was looking for some adult entertainment on the TV, and I found, oh no, it's blocked in China. They don't have pornography. So, you know, it was pretty tough, but I watched Mr. Wang's Wacky Wheelchair Funhouse, and, you know, that got me to where I needed to be. So I'm here, ready for some Dota. And the panel's reaction was, well, less than ideal. I think Blitz said something like, are we live? Is this the rehearsal? And I think Gods kind of laughed along and went, no, we're live. And then it was kind of awkward. And then they sat there, and then James just sort of smiled and said, okay, ladies and gentlemen, so in all seriousness, welcome to the Shanghai Major. We're going to learn about the do's and don'ts of the teams, the cans and cunts. And then he just finished his sentence, and they started talking. And I heard the cunts, and I rewound it back in the VOD. It was just like, he actually said cans and cunts. I'm not sure if that was intentional and he meant to say cans and can'ts and it slipped out, or if he kind of made it seem like it was a slip, but, you know, it's intentional. He kind of smiled afterwards, and I want to say it was intentional. And as a viewer, as a fellow host, completely respected it. I thought it was about as close to going over the line as you could get. I see why some people think that's over the line. But I also thought it was fucking hysterical. And I thought it was very appropriate to try and right away open up the dialogue in such a manner that it makes a point that, hey, we're in fucking China. Shit's different here. You know, that was a very extravagant, bold, somewhat crude way to say it. But that is a springboard to start a discussion that you often open panels with. You know, you don't go right into the tournament. You say, hey, guys, what's going on? We're here in X place. I saw this part of the city. There's this aspect of the culture I thought was cool. My travel was fun. You know, you usually start with the first couple minutes of just light, fluffy, anecdotal. What are we looking at here, gang? How is everybody feeling? Talk about the atmosphere here in beautiful, smoggy Shanghai, China. And I think that's a good springboard to do that, and the panel just didn't go for that at all, and it was a little too over the top. I thought the whiteboard was also a cool prop. I think the way he explained it made a lot of sense to me. I think it's interesting to watch esports evolve, right? There are a lot of aspects of the industry that have really interesting points of evolution where you can really look at, oh, wow, that was a jump, and then we kind of plateaued, and you kind of move. And one of the things that came after just, hey, we've got commentary. Oh, shit, we've got Dota TV. I don't have to watch Twitch anymore. I can listen in the client. That's fucking sick. And then people start thinking, man, maybe we should add something a little more dynamic to this. What do we got here? Panels. Hey, let's get a panel of experts that are kind of funny and witty, a guy that wears a crazy suit. They'll make some jokes. They'll talk about the games. They'll fill in between the games. And then we go back to the casters, more of a show. You throw it back and forth, hot potato, hot potato. Good shit, right? And then people started saying, what's the real next step here? Statistics. That's what sports has that we don't. Statistics. They've got numbers about everything. They know who's catching what, how often they're catching it. That's a big part of sports. You're watching live sports, and there's statistics all over the screen. Every time there's a record about to be broken or there's a chance that somebody could break a record, oh, you bet your ass you're hearing about it. So then, what do? Dat Dota appears. All of a sudden, we've got this open-sourced template for all of this raw data. And you've got awesome people like Knoxville and Scant and Nahaz that are finding new ways to derive information from replays, new ways to derive interesting information out of these out of all of this data and catalog it in such a way that the average user can digest it. So we can develop talking points for panels, give our casters numbers to back up the claims that they already know and feel are true. That's fucking awesome, right? What's the next step now? Well, the next step is making sure panels actually have some level of dynamic banter back and forth. Up until this point, panels have basically been consisted of Dota 2 experts. In Dota, what reigns true in terms of respect? There's two top things, and I think one outweighs the other. One is being a fucking pro player. No matter what, if you're a top tier player, if you're a contender, if you're someone that has won a tournament on a premium level at some point in the past, you instantly have street cred in our community. You've been there, man. You've lived it. You can empathize with the mindset of the players that are on the stage. You know what the fuck you're talking about, right? Number two are people that are super fucking dedicated and have been around forever. I think James is kind of one of those people. He's been around forever. He's obviously done a lot to just help foster growth in the scene, do events, and spread the good word of Dota 2. Those people have a lot of respect, and their voice carries a lot of weight in the scene, even though they don't have a history as a competitive Dota 2 player. Of course, FPS games are a different story, but in Dota 2, it's not that kind of street cred. So where does that leave us? There are a lot of people, not a lot. There are reasonably few people that have that experience and aren't actively playing. Your Merlinis, your Melks, what have you, right? Purge, well, he's not quite a pro player, but, analysts are basically still playing the game, right? And the few that aren't playing the game that are still regarded as analysts, a lot of them don't have particularly great presentation skills. You think about someone like Redeye, a host, or I think like Capitalist is a good example of someone who's just really lively on camera and really good on panels, in my opinion. That they're lively. They're like, LD's pretty good on panels because he's not afraid to fire shots at people, make jokes. Like he's good at debating. He's good at banter, right? So that's what makes him good on panels. The problem is LD isn't respected as an analyst, even though he knows the game pretty well. He has a very similar level of knowledge. People don't think of him as, oh shit, these Merlini knowledge bombs coming out left and right, carpet bombing this shit with knowledge. It's just not the same kind of respect. So when you take a panel that has one person who's a really good host, you have three people that are just like, yes, this is some of the best Dota 2 I've ever seen. When he bought that Blink dagger and he went in, I wasn't sure if it's like, Jesus Christ, some people just don't have that delivery down to an art yet. It takes time and practice. And if you're spending all your time studying Dota 2 and you're an expert on that level, guess what? You're not spending your time practicing your presentation skills. That's why public speaking is a fucking major at university, at least in America, right? You can spend your time studying to be a presenter and be engaging as a speaker. You can practice your banter. It's just like any other skill. It takes time to develop, but you have to work to develop it. It's a different skill set. It totally makes sense, right? So then people tried to do this. Let's have a host. Let's have some analysts. Let's have the funny guy. Let's just put period on the end. We'll put a fucking hat on him. He'll tell a few jokes. He'll loosen up everybody else. It'll be great. But the problem is that doesn't really work either, because then you've got one funny guy who feels pressured to kind of make jokes. Everyone else who feels like, well, that's the funny guy, so I don't really want to make jokes and steal any of his thunder. And then this host who's sort of trying to weave it together by being like, hey, Ted, that was pretty funny, right? Hey, fellas, what do you think about Ted's? And then it all kind of falls apart. It doesn't have that real organic feeling to it where there's just banter back and forth. There's just one guy that's trying to be the funny guy, and then three guys trying to be the serious guys, and then one guy that's trying to keep the whole thing from being a fucking train wreck. And that's inverse gel. You know, the whatever the opposite of gelling is, de-evolution. And I think that's one of the things that we have been trying to do at Moonduck, and like one of the things that Slacks has been doing is showing that there's value in being the funny guy, quote unquote, but not like saying, oh, we have a funny guy, but there's value in having someone who is kind of a wild card. He's not an expert. You know, his character is the guy that doesn't know anything, you know, and it works. It comes off in a very natural isn't quite the right word, but in a very relatable, that's a real person that you're talking to kind of a way, instead of this stiff ESPN style thing that we're kind of talking about, you know, a stiff panel versus a loose panel. And I think one of the things that we've most actively tried to work on at Moonduck is our banter. Like, we actually, after we're done doing a segment, we talk about, how did that feel? Was my banter good? I felt a little flat. You should have said this joke here. Like, we think a lot about the banter in between panels. You know, What the Duck is kind of our prize product outside of, I mean, now we did Captain's Draft, but that's our unique, like, that podcast and that style of just free-form communication, sort of like that Moonduck and Chill, the casual cast. That's mostly banter, you know, and that's what we're trying to work on and develop and individually improve on, and as a group show that together we can create something that's bigger than the sum of its parts, because you have that back and forth with each other. And we're sort of slowly but surely building that up. And I think as people are now enjoying all of the different types of content that we have in the Dota 2 space, we've got super serious majors, we've got Moonduck fuckery, and we've kind of got everything in between now. BTS does some crazy streams here and there. They also do some really serious streams. Join Dota as well. You know, they've got the Defense, which is a mid-tier tournament that's relatively serious, and then there's some fun content. You know, you see meme articles posted on their website, and that kind of stuff. And one thing that I'm glad the community is realizing, that it's fucking so important to have variety. If every single studio is this stiff, let's put on a tie, let's talk like we're very serious, we're doing a newscast, it all starts to fall apart. Part of what made this whole fucking thing work is that we're able to say things like, fuck, oh no, you bloody cunt. I can do that obnoxious accent, and it doesn't matter, because we're not bound by the FCC. We're not bound by anyone. We're bound by the fucking internet, our wits, and our goodwill, which is awesome. That's what makes this community so much fun, and why we like esports, because we can dare to be different, right? I can come out here and wear leggings and, oh God, this is weird. Oh, this is funny, and nobody really cares that much. It's not a big deal. It's just part of what we're doing here. And I think that's just important to keep in perspective. You know, I've been in the esports space for about 5.5 years now, which is a decent amount of time to see how things have evolved. And, you know, 4 years ago, when StarCraft 2 was the esport that was reigning supreme, and Twitch was just budding and really starting that upward trajectory to take over the streaming space on the internet, everyone wanted to be mainstream. That was literally the goal. Pretty much everyone that I talked to was talking about what we were doing in context of, how does this move us towards the mainstream? How do we get more media attention? How does this give us positive PR? How does this get more people that haven't heard of esports introduced to what we're doing? How does this piece of content transcend to getting rid of that stereotype that gaming is an antisocial, sort of sad hobby? You know, we need to just make the older generation understand that these are team games. This is now a social experience, not that different from watching a football game with your friends. That's really what this is about. And we sort of did that. Over the last 4 or 5 years, things have moved in that direction, except now it's starting to feel like, you know, fuck the mainstream. We don't need that ESPN bullshit. Hey, they want to start doing an esports section. They want to focus on League of Legends. That's cool, man. You know, that more power to you. But I don't think that is any longer the aspiration. I think Twitch is so big now on its own that we've proven, hey, we don't need that. We can do it our own way. League of Legends is getting numbers that rival real TV. I mean, Dota is too, but League is doing it more consistently in a manner that's more similar and structured to the way real TV would broadcast sports. And it's cool to see that the numbers are actually comparable in at least some regards. And we don't have to deal with all of the bullshit and bureaucracy that come along with that aspect of the industry. There are some positives to that money and that structure and that experience, but there's also a whole fucking sea of negatives, and you always have to keep that in mind. Let's take a little break here. I'll shut the fuck up for a minute. And this is from pflax. Okay, we watched this kind of during the prelude here to the show, and this is on Reddit. I'm sure most of you have seen it, but this is a good about a minute and a half of Pyrian talking about the point that I was just making. Let's take a listen.
I hate the way, like for instance, okay, TI3 had a much more laid-back feel. The analyst panel and all is a bit funnier. As the money goes up and the viewership goes up and the publicity goes up, people feel a natural reaction of we need to be more like regular sports. So then it's like we all need to wear suits. It needs to be more corporate and everything like that. And I think that is the worst thing to do. Because we got here not by being like that, but by being different. If you want to be like that, go and watch baseball or American football or soccer or whatever. If you want to actually be true to the roots of the game and the community, I don't think you should go anywhere near a suit and tie, corporate look and all that branding and everything. I hate that. And if I hate it, then you're sure that the esports viewers, like gamers, are not about that kind of thing at all. So the idea that we need to be more like traditional sports and be on ESPN and everything, that for me, if they want to cover our stuff, I mean, it's not up to me, but if they want to cover our stuff, that's fine, they can have us look at it, but I don't give a damn what they think. Like, I care about what esports fans think. That's my market, that's my fan base, if you like. Those are the people I connect with. Why are you looking at anything else? I don't get it.
Oh man, that obnoxious music really kind of ruined it. I should have played the source one instead of that shitty redo with Johnny Cash whining over the back. But regardless, it doesn't really matter. You get the point. I kind of summarized that more effectively than I thought. But thank you, Ted, for making that. And that's old too. That's from TI something. That's not particularly new. It's just something that's now been recycled because it's so relevant. So anyway, all of that is just sort of precursor and context to what I want to talk about with in regard to this specific story that happened. You have to keep all of this in mind, and it's all a balancing act, right? Like, how do you find the balance between too serious and too goofy? It's fucking difficult. It's a big gray area, and sometimes you swing and you miss. That's what comedy is all about. But you think every time a comedian has an idea for a joke, it ends up being a funny bit? No. They go out, they try it, people don't laugh, and they go, well, guess that didn't work. Maybe we should try a different delivery. Maybe we should try a different punchline. That's kind of how it works. You test your limits. Sometimes you go too far. Sometimes you undershoot, and then you try to find that sweet spot. So you kind of have to take those risks. You don't know how far you can push it until you actually push it. Like I said, I think James rode the line. I don't know if this whole personal vendetta with him and Ali is a thing and all that. It's a very weird situation that somehow rattled me more than I thought. It just sort of was after I read his whole 16-page post, I just had one of those sleepless nights of, what does it all mean, man? Is this even what I want to do with my life? My God. And of course, now there's talk about a caster union, which I want to give my 2 cents on a little bit. The only thing I'll say about his initial post, I'm really glad that James was kind enough to share his stream of consciousness with us. Obviously, the way it was written was not like an essay format. It was written in a very, I felt like when I was reading it, I could hear it in his voice. It was very much the way that he talks, which was cool and gave it a really authentic feel. Personally, I was hoping it would be a little more substantive. I felt like it was, the way he sort of teased isn't the right word. It was like, I have a big statement coming. Like, we'll see who makes the judgments, Gabe. And it's like, sounds like he's got some real dirty laundry he's about to hang out here. I can't wait to read this. And then you read it, and it's, you feel bad for the guy, and it's obviously kind of an emotional appeal. And I was in a bad state of mind because of this, and I yelled at this guy because of this. And honestly, I could relate to a lot of it. That is one of the shittier parts about being a talent in the entertainment industry. Is your job is to be, even if we're not making jokes, your job is to be comic relief for life. People aren't watching the stream because they want to learn about politics. They're watching the stream because they're taking a break from the real world to enjoy the fantasy world that is Dota. And you're just part of that vehicle that helps create the escape. That's what entertainment's all about. And that's healthy. That's what humans do, right? But no one gives a shit if your mom just died, or your brother's having legal issues, or you broke your foot yesterday. No one really cares that much. At the end of the day, they still expect you to come out and do your fucking job and deliver. And that's what makes this job so hard. That's why you're paid a huge day rate when you're working a live event, because you have to deal with all of that pressure and all of that stuff that's happening in the periphery. You have to fucking block out. You have to find a way to say, hey, shit, this is not happening. My grandmother died when I was at Starladder in Ukraine. That's something that you have to say to yourself, I'm not going to process this right now. I'm literally going to say, wow, that's pretty sad. stick it on the back burner. Let's focus on these games. Then you come home from the event and you let it happen. You find a way to tap into that emotional side and you somehow get that release so you're not just internalizing all of these emotions. That's part of the roller coaster that makes this work fucking difficult. And I felt, especially for him, when he talked about the showdown with Ali, when he came out after the panel at TI4, the opening bit that was like a 90-minute segment that he felt went really poorly, and it was a big opportunity to really, like, a lot of people were watching, and he was really mad, and he went outside, and the wrong person came and talked to him at the wrong time, and he exploded, just had one of those emotional outbursts, kind of meltdowns, which again, fucking happens when you're working in the high stress live environment. Like, part of our job as talent, part of your job as the host is to realize, like, I'm funneling all of that negative energy. When there's shit happens and there's something going on in the panel, like, part of your job as the host is to make other people look good. It's not about, if there's one person that's going to be thrown under the bus, or if there's one person that says, guys, we've got an issue here, you're the one that kind of takes responsibility. You're the one that communicates apologies. You're the one that kind of picks up the slack and fills in the gaps, right? So whenever something negative is happening on the panel, you're the one that kind of has to scoop up that negative energy, put it in your little jar, tuck it in down deep, and then radiate some positivity so people can feed off your vibes, right? That's part of the mindset you got to be in to make this kind of shit work. And it's totally normal when stuff doesn't go well to go outside, take that breather, and just want to fucking break something. Just, you're so fucking furious because this didn't work and people didn't see it the way you wanted them to see it, but you can't explain any of this to people because you can't say that production fucked up. You can't be public about it. So there's literally nothing you can do but just move on and let it go. And you know that, but you still have to fucking let it out. I totally get that, and I've had that. There have been times when I've called somebody and been like, listen, I just need to yell for 5 minutes. Can you sit there and pretend like I'm, can you just take this? Can you take a beating, please? And, I have a series of friends that I've explained this to, and they get it, and they think it's kind of funny. They feel better now, and I'm like, actually, I do. Now that I said all of that out loud, it's off my chest. I can get back to being a human. Thank you very much. I owe you a beer. You work in these mechanisms and these ways of checking yourself and identifying when you're getting to crisis status. Nobody's perfect, and it's really difficult. It takes practice, and sometimes when the stakes are high, you just crack and you yell at people, and that's it. Now, where I didn't enjoy the story so much is where he said, I did this, and then I think that he thought that I blamed him. It's like, well, why didn't you just go talk to him? Why didn't you apologize? Right away when you realize, fuck, I think I just yelled at the wrong guy for the wrong reason. You go up and say, I'm so sorry. I'm super stressed. You make up an excuse, or you say, I have whatever you got to do. You at least communicate that was not my intention. That was an emotional outburst. That's not what I'm normally like. These set of circumstances pushed me over the edge. Apologize, do whatever you got to do. But I felt like there was a lot of subjective this is my interpretation of what I think he thought about this situation, so we can conclude. It's like, I don't really think we can conclude shit from that. It's just, it's interesting to hear his insight about, his interactions with people, but it's not very substantive. I didn't walk away from that thinking, man, Valve are the bad guys and Too Good's the good guy, or even the other way around, that Valve are the good guys and Too Good's the bad guy. I just kind of walked away from that thinking, this is weird, man. I never thought something like this this tops any drama that I could ever even conceive as the most intense drama of all time. So it just kind of shook me a little bit in that way that I don't like to be shaken. I'm a stirred kind of guy. Stir me up, don't shake, please. It was pretty wild. I read his follow-up this morning, actually right before the podcast, the response number 2, which was nice and positive and just kind of like, hey guys, just FYI. And I can appreciate that. I think there is not enough of that in the Dota 2 space of just people trying to create, even if it's a one-sided dialogue, just say like, hey guys, this is what we're working on. This is what I'm doing. Boom. It's kind of important and something that I've neglected on for myself and also Moonduck, The last couple months, it probably seems like I haven't been doing very much, right? Like Captain's Draft 3, I was somewhat involved in terms of casting. Like I casted some days. Obviously at the LAN, I was on camera every day. But the month before Captain's Draft, or the 2 months before Captain's Draft, when there wasn't really that much stuff to cast outside of Moonduck and Chill, I've been working quite a bit. I've been doing all of the financial aspects of Moonduck. I've been managing the business in most regards and setting up a lot of stuff that we're going to utilize in the future, but haven't been able to utilize yet, haven't been able to talk about publicly. So there's a lot of stuff going on. but it's not public. It's not noticeable, and it's nice to just inform people like, hey guys, we haven't really made much content in the last month. This is why. We've been working on this. We're really excited for Captain's Draft 4. Just give people an idea of what you're doing. It doesn't have to be that much. It doesn't even have to be that substantive. People just appreciate being thought of, appreciate being communicated to, appreciate that you took the time to think, I bet these people are kind of curious what we're working on. Let's give them a little something to nibble on. It's a good thing to do. And I can really appreciate him doing that and kind of in turn motivating me to try and be a little more proactive about doing that stuff as well. So it's pretty good. It's pretty crazy. I feel like I don't have a great conclusion to that whole stream of consciousness I just had. Those are sort of my thoughts just about the whole scenario, and I think all of the underlying issues surrounding it. It's not easy at all. I don't mean just the job, but just designing panels and having a clear vision. But I guess to wrap up, I think the next step after the I got to the stats peg, and this next step is fine-tuning panels. And all of that I described, we're in this transition period where we're starting to learn that just because you know a fuckload about Dota doesn't mean you're going to be a good panelist. And that I don't mean that to imply the people that are on the panel right now aren't doing a good job. It isn't even about how good you are individually. It's how you gel with other people. Look at the real sports parallel. Even though we don't want to be real sports completely, they still do a lot of things right that we can do right as well that we're not doing right now. And for a lot of those panels, ESPN or whatever network will take a group of people and they just have them work together a lot to develop that gel, that mesh. That's honestly what we're trying to do at Moonduck. Like, okay, maybe you think pflax isn't a good panelist because you know enough about Dota. Maybe you think Mott isn't the best person to have on a panel in a vacuum, but we want you to see our panel and be like, wow, his personality really comes out when he's with that group of people. The way that they rip on each other and go back and forth and kind of make fun of this and that, that's a really cool dynamic. That idea of sum greater than the parts kind of a thing. I think that's the next step. I really do. I think finding panel, like, that was what was so good about TI2 and TI3, and we didn't even realize it, is that Bruno and James and all of the other people they involved for those panels, they had that dynamic. There was a sort of almost an unconscious understanding that we all completely took for granted, and those two made it look easy, because their banter back and forth is really good, and they're really good at including the other people that they know well. The good studio is just good at that in general. Look at someone like Shane, someone like Scriff. Those guys can just sit down and cast games and hang out and shoot the shit and have really good banter back and forth. That's so fucking important. That's part of the reason why people love content that the good studio makes. We need to see more of that in the mainstream. Like, someone like Shane is really fucking good on panels. That guy knows Dota. He knows what he's talking about. And he's a smart, clever dude. He's good at making jokes. He's good at having back and forth with people while speaking at a high level about the game. He says things with confidence. He's not afraid to disagree. He's not afraid to put himself out there. But because that's such an odd niche, he's not really a caster. He's not an analyst. He's not a funny guy like Slacks. He's some sort of hybrid of all of those. He's kind of a jack of all trades. To me, that's prime panelist material. Ding, 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 ding. Like, get this guy on a fucking panel. I know his head's a little shiny, but that's okay. We can fix that. We have the tools. We have the technology. And I think, like, there's just too much emphasis on how much do you know about Dota? Can you analyze the game? And more, that's less important than making sure people can have banter and be funny and go back and forth. And I think that's what this whole fucking thing boils down to. And I think more and more we're going to see much more thought get put into these panels instead of just taking a random medley of casters and talent, say, hey, you guys know each other, right? Get on there and make some jokes. It works, but it could be a much better product if there was more thought put behind it. That's kind of the summary here. Last point I wanted to hit. The caster union, we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, James says he's going to go talk to Twitch about a caster union of sorts. I have not been contacted in regard to it. Surely Moonduck would be included somehow. I would imagine. We are an agency after all. That's part of what makes us different. We're not just a studio, but we try to do things for our brand and do studio content, but also market our people as much as possible. Negotiate on their behalf when it makes sense. Give them advice when they want to negotiate themselves. Teach them the business side of what we're doing. so that they have the ability to negotiate contracts, make sure they're being paid a fair rate, establish their self-worth, help them get in contact with events, put their name at least on the list, those sort of things. That's kind of what we're all about, and trying to help these. It's easier for someone like myself or Suns fan who's been around the industry for a while. We kind of know how it works. We know how much casters are paid. A lot of casters that haven't done, someone who's never done a LAN before, they don't even know what they should be paid for that, and that's the kind of stuff that we help provide, help bridge that gap. And obviously we haven't brought in too many new people onto our agency yet, but that's always been the goal, at least on the back burner, is start with a base and then try to expand out. Again, help bridge that gap so talent at least have a somewhat professional means to negotiate and have someone that handles things for them as an agent would. That's kind of what the whole thing's about. So I think, I'm American. I know there's a lot of Europeans out there. Euros seem to just have nothing but good things to say about unions. I will say I think the statement that unions are nothing but a net gain is false. In America, we have seen some bad things happen with unions where they have a little too much power, I think, in a lot of different industries that I don't really want to get into. But unions are not all good, and they need to be done in a specific way. My biggest fear with caster union is who's in charge of it. Because at that point, the union is a little bit like an agency. You have to work together to negotiate rates and utilize your collective bargaining power. And to me, that's a little bit scary. That's part of the reason why I wanted to leave BTS. It was a smaller piece of the puzzle, but a reason nonetheless is that I wanted to have control. I didn't particularly like the way they negotiated on my behalf in a number of different circumstances, and I wanted to be able to negotiate in a completely different style that I felt was just more representative of what I want to bring to the scene. And it's just a fundamental difference of how, if some people think if you need to be the shark because if you're not, someone else is just going to come in and take advantage if you don't. And I'm a little bit more the opposite of, when in doubt, I'm going to try to assume the best in people until I don't have a reason to trust you. I'm not over trusting. I'm not overly optimistic. I'm not naive, but I'm not really looking to min-max out of the gate. I'm more looking to try and build a positive relationship with some longevity. I'd rather work with someone I like and trust over a long period of time and have kind of peaks and troughs where sometimes it's more profitable for me, sometimes it's more profitable for them, and it goes back and forth. I'm very fine with that arrangement. And some business folk don't agree with that attitude. They think it's just weak and soft, and people will take advantage of you if you don't. You always open high because they're always going to bring you down. I'm like, well, I've lost some contracts from opening too high. I'd rather open normal. I'd rather just be honest and say, hey, this is what I think this is worth. Do you agree or disagree? They either agree or disagree, and we go from there. There have been times where I've given a number and said, this is lower than usual, but I really want to work this event. I think this is a cool thing. I'll give you this rate. And they say, no, we can do better than that. We'll give you an extra 30%. That has definitely happened to me before. It's just a completely different mindset, a different style. And when you're talking about a caster union where all of the top casters and even the B tier, the C tier casters are part of it, who's making the decisions of how things are negotiated? How are we establishing the value? In theory, it sounds good, but I think logistically it can get very messy very quick. And it potentially worries me. I guess I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic that it could work out. I have some faith in Twitch, especially since they acquired the GG agency. They've done undeniably good work. They have a really good track record of taking care of their people, getting them good events, and yada, yada, yada. So that said, if it's too good working with Twitch, I have some confidence. On more of a personal level, I've had basically nothing but positives, positive interactions with James. He was I don't know there isn't really a proper word for it. I haven't known him for that long, probably not even a year. I would say I've been quote unquote friends with him, but people kind of warned me before I reached out to him for some advice, and I told him I needed a reality check on just how things are going, and that was sort of the first time that I met him. And people said, I don't know if you can trust him. It seemed like a lot of people didn't really trust him. And to me, I don't like to prejudge. If we're good friends and you tell me that guy, don't fucking trust him. I'll be a little more hesitant, but I really believe in making up your mind for yourself. I'm a firm believer in perspective, and I genuinely believe that you telling me that, like, you genuinely believe that he's a criminal or a thief or whatever. But I don't 100% trust your perspective. Even if we're good friends, I trust that you're not lying to me and you're well-intentioned, but I don't trust that you 100% read the situation right. There's two sides to every fucking story. I'm not going to prejudge somebody until I have an interaction, and I'm going to judge them based on that, much more so than someone else's, anecdotal experience that could be charged in some manner. I've had basically nothing but positive experiences with James. Overall, I think he's given me a lot of really good advice. He's served as a little bit of a mentor figure in certain times of hardship, and I respect his opinion in a lot of regards. So I hope things work out well for him. This whole thing's real messy, and it kind of sucks for everyone involved. So I hope it all ends well, but only time will tell. And I think at that point we kind of leave it at that. A nice Dota 2 oriented podcast, man. So much to talk about this week. It was quite fun. We should have a What the Duck for Moon Duck coming up soon-ish, soon TM, maybe a little bit. I think that is the plan, to do one right before the main event starts. When folks are in China, try to do a little prelude. Hey, let's hype it up. See what's going on coming into the main event. So happy Leap Day, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another podcast. As I talked about before, there are a lot of changes coming to the podcast here. I'm coming back to this weekly model. I think I'm finally at the point with it where I know what kind of content I'm going to fill with. We're looking at Mondays as the day for Zyori podcast, just kind of in general. It's always going to fluctuate based on traveling and schedules, but Mondays is roughly when we're going to do it. So I introduced Carlo last week. We're going to have him on a future podcast. I mentioned we're going to have Dan on. I'm going to be mixing the podcast with gaming content and real life content. I'm going to start doing some more health stuff and just bringing on some cool people I know local to the Philly area and start just building a more diverse set of episodes and kind of talking points, because I think there's a lot of cool shit to talk about that you can draw parallels to gaming with. So expect some slightly different stuff here. If you're enjoying the podcast, find it on iTunes, Twitter, all that good shit. ZyoriTV, just Google Zyori Podcast and it'll pop up on iTunes right away. And it should be good stuff. But I think that's it, folks. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other. I'm going to catch you on the next podcast.